Which blood type is the universal donor and which is the universal recipient?
Persons with blood type O are universal donors. They are able to donate blood to anyone. Persons with blood type of AND are universal recipients. They are able to receive blood from any donor.
How much electricity does an electric eel generate?
An electric eel, Electrophorus electricus, has current producing organs made up of electric plates on both sides of its vertebral column running almost its entire body length. The charge on the average of 350 volts, but as great as 550 volts is released by the central nervous system. The shock consists of 4 to 8 separate charges, which last only 2 to 3/1000ths of a second each. These shocks, used as a defense mechanism, can be repeated up to 150 times per hour without any visible fatigue to the eel. The most powerful electric eel, found in the rivers of Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, and Peru, produces a shock of 400 to 650 volts.
When do solar eclipses happen?
A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between Earth and the Sun and all three bodies are aligned in the same plane. When the moon completely blocks Earth's view of the Sun and the umbra, or dark part of the moon's shadow, reaches Earth, a total eclipse occurs. A total eclipse happens only along a narrow path 100 to 200 miles. 160 to 320 kilometers, wide, called the track of totality. Just before totality, the only parts of the Sun that are visible are a few points of light called Baily's beads shining through valleys on the moon's surface. Sometimes, a last bright flash of sunlight is seen, the diamond ring effect. During totality, which averages 2.5 minutes but may last up to 7.5 minutes, the sky is dark and stars and other planets are easily seen. The corona, the Sun's outer atmosphere, is also visible. If the moon does not appear large enough in the sky to completely cover the Sun, it appears silhouetted against the Sun with a ring of sunlight showing around it. This is an annular eclipse. Because the Sun is not completely covered, its corona cannot be seen. And although the sky may darken, it will not be dark enough to see the stars. During a partial eclipse of the Sun, the penumbra of the moon's shadow strikes Earth. A partial eclipse can also be seen on either side of the track of totality of an annular or total eclipse. The moon will cover part of the Sun and the sky will not darken noticeably during a partial eclipse.
Which diamond is the world's largest?
The Cullinan diamond, weighing 3,106 carats, is the world's largest. It was discovered on January 25, 1905, at the Premier Diamond Mine, Transvaal, South Africa. Named for Sir Thomas M. Cullinan, 1862–1936, chairman of the Premier Diamond Company. It was cut into 9 major stones and 96 smaller brilliants. The total weight of the cut stones was 1,063 carats, only 35% of the original weight. Cullinan I, also known as the Great Star of Africa or the First Star of Africa, is a pear-shaped diamond weighing 530.2 carats. It is 2.12 inches, 5.4 centimeters, long, 1.75 inches, 4.4 centimeters wide, and 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, thick at its deepest point. It was presented to Britain's King Edward VII, 1841–1910, in 1907. And was set in the British monarch's sceptre with the cross. It is still the largest cut diamond in the world. Cullinan II, also known as the Second Star of Africa, is an oblong stone that weighs 317.4 carats. It is set in the British Imperial State Crown.
What are the 4 major cloud groups and their types?
High clouds composed almost entirely of ice crystals. The bases of these clouds start at 20,000 feet, 6,096 meters, and reach 40,000 feet, 12,192 meters. Cirrus, from Latin, lock of hair, thin, feather-like crystal clouds in patches or narrow bands. The large ice crystals that often trail downward in well-defined wisps are called Maray's tails. Cirrostratus thin, white cloud layer that resembles a veil or sheet. This layer can be striated or fibrous. Because of the ice content, these clouds are associated with the halos that surround the sun or moon. Cirrocumulus thin clouds that appear as small white flakes or cotton patches and may contain supercooled water. Middle clouds composed primarily of water. The height of the cloud bases range from 6,500 to 20,000 feet, 2,000 to 6,096 meters. Altostratus appears as a bluish or grayish veil or layer of clouds that can gradually merge into altocumulus clouds. The sun may be dimly visible through it, but flat, thick sheets of this cloud type can obscure the sun. Altocumulus a white or gray layer or patches of solid clouds with rounded shapes. Low clouds composed almost entirely of water that may at times be supercooled. At subfreezing temperatures, snow and ice crystals may be present as well. The bases of these clouds start near Earth's surface and climb to 6,500 feet. 2,000 meters, in the middle latitudes. Stratus gray, uniform, sheet-like clouds with a relatively low base. Or they can be patchy, shapeless, low gray clouds. Thin enough for the sun to shine through, These clouds bring drizzle and snow. Stratocumulus globular rounded masses that form at the top of the layer. Nimbostrata seen as a gray or dark, relatively shapeless. Massive cloud layer containing rain, snow, and ice pellets. Clouds with vertical development contain supercooled water above the freezing level and grow to great heights. The cloud bases range from 1,600 feet, 488 meters, to 20,000 feet, 6,096 meters. Cumulus detached, fair weather clouds with relatively flat bases and dome-shaped tops. These usually do not have extensive vertical development and do not produce precipitation. Cumulonimbus unstable, large. Vertical clouds with dense boiling tops that bring showers, hail, thunder, and lightning.
What is the gravitational force on each of the planets, the Moon, and the Sun relative to Earth?
If the gravitational force on Earth is taken as 1, the comparative forces are. Weight comparisons can be made by using this table. If a person weighed 100 pounds, 45.36 kilograms, on Earth, then the weight of the person on the Moon would be 16 pounds, 7.26 kilograms, or 100 x 0.16.
Who was the first astronomer royal?
The first astronomer royal was John Flamsteed, 1646 to 1719. He was appointed astronomer royal in 1675 when the Royal Greenwich Observatory was founded. Until 1972, the astronomer royal also served as the director of the Royal Greenwich Observatory.
Where is the longest cave system in the world?
The Mammoth Cave System in Kentucky is the longest cave system in the world. The cave system consists of more than 367 miles, 591 kilometers, of subterranean labyrinths. If the second and third longest caves in the world were combined, Mammoth Cave would still be the longest cave in the world.
What fraction of an iceberg shows above water?
Only 1/7 to 1/10 of an iceberg's mass shows above water.
What is the chemical formula for TNT?
TNT is the abbreviation for 2,4,6 trinitrotoluene C7H5N3O6 or C6H2, CH3, NO2, 3. TNT is a powerful, highly explosive compound widely used in conventional bombs. Discovered by Joseph Wilbrand, 1811 to 1894, in 1863. It is made by treating toluene with nitric acid and sulfuric acid. This yellow crystalline solid with a low melting point has low shock sensitivity and even burns without exploding. This makes it safe to handle and cast, but once detonated, it explodes violently.
When was the symbol of Smokey Bear first used to encourage forest fire prevention?
The origin of Smokey Bear can be traced to World War II when the U.S. Forest Service, concerned about maintaining a steady lumber supply for the war effort, wished to educate the public about the dangers of forest fires. They sought volunteer advertising support from the War Advertising Council. And on August 9, 1944, Albert Steele, 1899–1974, a noted illustrator of animals, created Smokey Bear. Since 1944, Smokey Bear has been a national symbol of forest fire prevention not only in America, but also in Canada and Mexico, where he is known as Simon. This public service advertising, PSA, campaign is the longest-running PSA campaign in U.S. history. In 1947, a Los Angeles advertising agency coined the slogan "Only you can prevent forest fires." On April 23, 2001, after more than 50 years, the famous ad slogan was revised to "Only you can prevent wildfires" in response to the wildfire outbreaks during 2000. The campaign gained a living mascot in 1950 when a firefighting crew rescued a male bear cub from a forest fire in the Capitol Mountains of New Mexico. Sent to the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., to become Smokey Bear. The animal was a living symbol of forest fire protection until his death in 1976. His remains are buried at the Smokey Bear State Historical Park in Capitan, New Mexico.
When was the comet Hale-Bopp first observed?
Comet Hale-Bopp was first observed by Alan Hale in New Mexico and Thomas Bopp in Arizona on July 22. 1995. Their discovery was announced by the International Astronomical Union on July 23, 1995. Hale-Bopp was closest to Earth in March 1997 when it was 122 million miles, 196 million kilometers, away. It is a very large comet with a nucleus of approximately 25 miles. 40 kilometers, in diameter, making it 4 times as large as Halley's Comet. Although most comets have 2 tails, Hale-Bopp exhibited 3 tails. The 2 tails typical of most comets are the dust tail and the ion tail. The dust tail, consisting of dust and debris from the nucleus, streams behind the comet in its orbit. The ion tail, consisting of the comet's material interacting with the solar wind, faces away from the Sun. Hale-Bopp's third tail was composed of neutral sodium atoms. Hale-Bopp was visible with the naked eye for nearly 19 months. It is not expected to return for 4,000 years.
The venom of the brown recluse is hemolytic and causes. Do male mosquitoes bite humans?
No. Male mosquitoes live on plant juices, sugary saps, and liquids arising from decomposition. They do not have a biting mouth that can penetrate human skin as female mosquitoes do. In some species, the females, who lay as many as 200 eggs, need blood to lay their eggs. These are the species that bite humans and other animals.
Why is Pennsylvania crude oil so highly valued?
The waxy, sweet paraffinic oils found in Pennsylvania first became prominent because high-quality lubricating oils and greases could be made from them. Similar grade crude oil is also found in West Virginia, eastern Ohio, and southern New York. Different types of crude oil vary in thickness and color, ranging from a thin, clear oil to a thick, tar-like substance.
What were early ideas on evolution?
While some Greek philosophers had theories about the gradual evolution of life, Plato, 427 to 347 b. CE, and Aristotle, 384 to 322 BCE, were not among them. In the 1700s, natural theology, the explanation of life as the manifestation of the Creator's plan, held sway in Europe. This idea was the motive force behind the work of Carl Linnaeus, 1707 to 1778. Who was the first to classify all known living things by kingdom. Also popular prior to the work of Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882, were the theories of special creation. Creationism, blending inheritance. That offspring were always the mixture of the traits of their two parents, and acquired characteristics.
How much water is in an inch of snow?
An average figure is 10 inches, 25 centimeters, of snow is equal to 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water. Heavy, wet snow has a high water content, 4 to 5 inches. 10 to 12 centimeters, may contain 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water. A dry, powdery snow might require 15 inches, 38 centimeters, of snow to equal 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water.
What is a moraine?
A moraine is a mound, ridge, or any other distinct accumulation of unsorted, unstratified material or drift, deposited chiefly by direct action of glacier ice.
When was the first garbage incinerator built?
The first garbage incinerator in the United States was built in 1885 on Governor's Island in New York Harbor.
What is the life of a nuclear power plant?
While there is some controversy about the subject, the working life of a nuclear power plant as defined by the industry and its regulators is approximately 40 years, which is about the same as that of other types of power stations.
Does your heart stop beating when you sneeze?
The heart does not stop when you sneeze. Sneezing, however, does affect the cardiovascular system. It causes a change in pressure inside the chest. This change in pressure affects the blood flow to the heart, which in turn affects the heart's rhythm. Therefore, a sneeze does produce a harmless delay between one heartbeat and the next, often misinterpreted as a skipped beat.
How does the per capita solid waste generation in the United States compare to other countries?
The reliance on non-durable goods and excess packaging suggests that the United States is a throwaway society. One of the differences in the per capita amount of garbage generated throughout the world is due to the cost of waste disposal. Among the developed nations, people have the incentive to waste less when disposal is more expensive. Developing nations generally consume less and consequently generate less waste.
What are the major divisions of the human skeleton?
The human skeleton has two major divisions, the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton includes the bones of the center or axis of the body. The appendicular skeleton consists of the bones of the upper and lower extremities.
What are some examples of genetic engineering in animals and microbes?
One of the earliest applications of biotechnology was the genetic engineering of a growth hormone. Bovine GH, produced naturally in the bovine pituitary. Bovine GH can increase milk production in lactating cows. Using biotechnology, scientists bioengineered the gene that controls bovine GH production into E. coli, grew the bacteria in fermentation chambers, and thus produced large quantities of bovine GH. the bioengineered bovine GH when injected into lactating cows resulted in an increase of up to 20% in national milk production. Using bovine GH, farmers are able to stabilize milk production in their herds, avoiding fluctuations in production levels. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, approved use of recombinant bovine growth hormone in 1993 after 10 years of study. A similar regimen was adapted using the pig equivalent of growth hormone, porcine GH. Injected in pigs, porcine GH reduced back fat and increased muscle, meat, gain. Pig growth hormone has been test marketed in a select population with no ill effects. However, it has not yet been approved by the FDA. The first transgenic animal available as a food source on a large scale was the salmon, which reached U.S. food markets in 2001, following rigid evaluations of consumer and environmental safety. These salmon have the capability of growing from egg to market size, 6 to 10 pounds, in 18 months. As compared to conventional fish breeding, which takes up to 36 months to bring a fish to market size. The use of transgenic salmon can help reduce overfishing of wild salmon stocks.
What is the most successful and diverse group of terrestrial vertebrates?
Birds, members of the class Aves, are the most successful of all terrestrial vertebrates. There are 28 orders of living birds with almost 10,000 species distributed over almost the entire Earth. The success of birds is basically due to the development of the feather.
What are the stages of postnatal development?
The 5 life stages of postnatal development are: 1. Neonatal, 2. Infancy, 3. Childhood, adolescence, and 5. Maturity. The neonatal period extends from birth to 1 month. Infancy begins at 1 month and continues to 2 years of age. Childhood begins at 2 years of age and lasts until adolescence. Adolescence begins at around 12 or 13 years of age and ends with the beginning of adulthood. Adulthood, or maturity, includes the years between ages 18 to 25 and old age. The process of aging is called senescence.
What was the first important scientific society in the United States?
The first significant scientific society in the United States was the American Philosophical Society. Organized in 1743 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790. During colonial times, the quest to understand nature and seek information about the natural world was called natural philosophy.
What was the first mathematical society organized in the United States?
The first mathematical society in the United States was the American Mathematical Society, founded in 1888 to further the interests of mathematics research and scholarship. The first president was John Howard Van Amringe, 1835 to 1915.
What wood is the favorite for butcher's blocks?
The preferred wood for butcher's blocks is the American sycamore, Platanus occidentalis. Also known as American plane tree, buttonball, buttonwood, plane tree, and water beech, because of its toughness. It is also used as a veneer for decorative surfaces as well as for railroad ties, fence posts, and fuel.
How is blood pressure measured?
A sphygmomanometer is the device used to measure blood pressure. It was invented in 1881 by an Austrian named von Basch. It consists of a cuff with an inflatable bladder that is wrapped around the upper arm. A rubber bulb to inflate the bladder, and a device that indicates the pressure of blood. Measuring arterial tension, blood pressure, of a person's circulation is achieved when the cuff is applied to the arm over the artery and pumped to a pressure that occludes or blocks it. This gives the systolic measure, or the maximum pressure of the blood, which occurs during contraction of the ventricles of the heart. Air is then released from the cuff until the blood is first heard passing through the opening artery, called Korokov sounds. This gives diastolic pressure, or the minimum value of blood pressure that occurs during the relaxation of the arterial filling phase of the heart muscle.
How much wood is in a cord?
A cord of wood is a pile of logs 4 feet, 1.2 meters, wide. 4 feet, 1.2 meters, high, and 8 feet, 2.4 meters, long. It may contain from 77 to 96 cubic feet of wood. The larger the unsplit logs, the larger the gaps, with fewer cubic feet of wood actually in the cord. Burning one full cord of wood produces the same amount of energy as 1 ton of coal.
What is air pollution?
Air pollution is the contamination of Earth's atmosphere at levels high enough to harm humans, others, organisms, or other materials. The major air pollutants are particulate matter, ozone, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and lead. Primary air pollutants, including carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter, enter the atmosphere directly. Secondary air pollutants are harmful chemicals that form from other substances released into the atmosphere. Ozone and sulfur trioxide are examples of secondary air pollutants.
What is carpal tunnel syndrome?
Carpal tunnel syndrome occurs when a branch of the median nerve in the forearm is compressed at the wrist as it passes through the tunnel formed by the wrist bones, or carpals, and a ligament that lies just under the skin. The syndrome occurs most often in middle age and more so in women than men. The symptoms are intermittent at first, then become constant. Numbness and tingling begin in the thumb and first two fingers. Then the hand and sometimes the whole arm becomes painful. Treatment involves wrist splinting, weight loss, and control of edema. Treatments for arthritis may help also. If not, a surgical procedure in which the ligament at the wrist is cut can relieve pressure on the nerve. Those who work continuously with computer keyboards are particularly vulnerable to carpal tunnel syndrome. To minimize the risk of developing this problem, operators should keep their wrists straight as they type, rather than tilting the hands up. It is also best to place the keyboard at a lower position than a standard desktop.
Why is radon a health hazard?
Radon is a colorless, odorless, tasteless, radioactive gaseous element produced by the decay of radium. It has 3 naturally occurring isotopes found in many natural materials, such as soil, rocks, well water, and building materials. Because the gas is continually released into the air, it makes up the largest source of radiation that humans receive. A National Academy of Sciences, NAS, report noted that radon was the second leading cause of lung cancer. It has been estimated that it may cause as much as 12%, or about 15,000 to 22,000 cases, of lung cancer deaths annually. Smokers seem to be at a higher risk than non-smokers. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, recommends that in radon testing the level should not be more than 4 picocuries per liter. The estimated national average is 1.5 picocuries per liter. Because EPA's safe level is equivalent to 200 chest X-rays per year, some experts believe that lower levels are appropriate. The American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, OSHRE, recommends 2 picocuries/liter. The EPA estimates that nationally 1 in 15, or 6%, of all homes have radon levels that are above the 4 picocuries/liter limit. This is down from a 1987 survey that estimated 21% of homes were above this level.
Which hurricane in the United States was the most destructive?
The economic loss caused by Hurricane Katrina is estimated at $100 to $150 billion, making it the costliest natural disaster in United States. The death toll for Katrina was less than 2,000, which is significant although nowhere near the death toll of at least 8,000 during the Galveston hurricane in 1900. Katrina made landfall in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana as a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 125 miles per hour, 201 kilometers per hour. On August 29, 2005, the coastal areas of Louisiana, including New Orleans, Mississippi, and Alabama, suffered extensive damage.
What is a fuzzy search?
Fuzzy search is an inexact search that allows a user to search for data that are similar to but not exactly the same as what he or she specifies. It can produce results when the exact spelling is unknown, or it can help users obtain information that is loosely related to a topic.
When did the first nuclear power plant generate electricity for residential use?
The first nuclear power plant to generate electricity for residential use was a small facility in Obninsk, in the former Soviet Union, on June 27, 1954. The capacity of the power plant was only 5 megawatts. Due to the status of international relations during the Cold War, this accomplishment was not reported widely in the West. 2 years later, in August 1956, the Calder Hall Unit 1 power plant became operational in Great Britain. Its initial capacity was 50 megawatts of electricity. Other units were added and it continued to operate for nearly 50 years. Until March 2003. Calder Hall was the longest operating reactor in history.
The following chart indicates the top 5 states with their capacity for electricity generated by wind. Which states generate the highest percentage of electricity from wind?
The United States was able to generate more than 25,000 megawatts, MW, of electricity from the wind in 2008. This supplied an estimated 73 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity, which was enough to power about 7 million average American homes. Minnesota and Iowa both got over 7% of their electricity from wind energy.
Why do dogs hear more than humans?
A dog's ears are highly mobile, allowing it to scan its environment for sounds. The ears capture the sounds and funnel them down to the eardrum. Dogs can hear sounds from 4 times farther away than humans.
What are the differences between reflecting and refracting telescopes?
Reflecting telescopes capture light using a mirror while refracting telescopes capture light with a lens. The advantages of reflecting telescopes are, 1. They collect light with a mirror so there is no color fringing. And 2. Since a mirror can be supported at the back there is no size limit. In an effort to alleviate the problem of color fringing always associated with lenses, Isaac Newton built a reflecting telescope in 1668 that collected light with mirrors.
Why and how do cats purr?
Experts cannot agree on how or why cats purr, or on where the sound originates. Some think that the purr is produced by the vibration of blood in a large vein in the chest cavity. Where the vein passes through the diaphragm, the muscles around the vein contract, nipping the blood flow and setting up oscillations. These sounds are magnified by the air in the bronchial tubes and the windpipe. Others think that purring is the vibrations of membranes, called false vocal cords, located near the vocal cords. No one knows for sure why a cat purrs, but many people interpret the sound as one of contentment. Cats are also known to purr while in pain, such as while giving birth or dying, possibly as a way to soothe themselves.
Did Darwin and Mendel know each other?
Although both men lived during the same time period in the 19th century, they did not know each other. Charles Darwin's, 1809–1882, publication on the Origin of Species, 1859. Popularized his theory of natural selection but raised many questions as to how organisms could display modified or new traits. In 1865 Mendel published his landmark paper Experiments in Plant Hybridization. Researchers have been unable to document whether either man used the other's work in the development of their respective theories.
What is Fuller's Earth?
It is a naturally occurring white or brown clay containing aluminum magnesium silicate. Fuller's earth acts as a catalyst and was named for a process known as fulling, a process used to clean grease from wool and cloth. It is currently used for lightening the color of oils and fats, as a pigment extender, as a filter, as an absorbent, for example, in litter boxes to absorb animal waste, and in floor sweeping compounds.
How strong is bone?
Bone is one of the strongest materials found in nature. It is a rigid connective tissue that has a matrix of collagen fibers embedded in calcium salts. Most of the skeletal system is composed of bone, which provides support for muscle attachment and protects the internal organs. 1 cubic inch of bone can withstand loads of at least 19,000 pounds, 8,626 kilograms, which is approximately the weight of 5 standard-size pickup trucks. This is roughly 4 times the strength of concrete. Bone's resistance to load is equal to that of aluminum and light steel. Ounce for ounce, bone is actually stronger than steel and reinforced concrete. Since steel bars of comparable size would weigh 4 or 5 times as much as bone.
How acidic is acid rain?
Acidity or alkalinity is measured by a scale known as the pH, potential for hydrogen, scale. It runs from 0 to 14. Since it is logarithmic, a change in 1 unit equals a tenfold increase or decrease. So a solution at pH 2 is 10 times more acidic than one at pH 3 and 100 times as acidic as a solution at pH 4. 0 is extremely acid, 7 is neutral, and 14 is very alkaline. Any rain below 5.0 is considered acid rain. Some scientists use the value of 5.6 or less. Normal rain and snow containing dissolved carbon dioxide, a weak acid. Measure about pH 5.6. Actual values vary according to geographical area. Eastern Europe and parts of Scandinavia have an average rain pH of 4.3 to 4.5, the rest of Europe is 4.5 to 5.1, Eastern United States and Canada ranges from 4.2 to 4.6, and Mississippi Valley has a range of 4.6 to 4.8. The worst North American area, having 4.2, is centered around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario.
Why are leeches important in the field of medicine?
Leeches have been used in the practice of medicine since ancient times. During the 1800s, leeches were widely used for bloodletting because of the mistaken idea that body disorders and fevers were caused by an excess of blood. Leech collecting and culture were practiced on a commercial scale during this time. William Wordsworth's 1770 to 1850 poem The Leech Gatherer was based on this use of leeches. The medical leech, Hirudo medicinalis, is used to remove blood that has accumulated within tissues as a result of injury or disease. Leeches have also been applied to fingers or toes that have been surgically reattached to the body. The sucking by the leech unclogs small blood vessels, permitting blood to flow normally again through the body part. The leech releases hirudin, secreted by the salivary glands, which is an anticoagulant that prevents blood from clotting and dissolves pre-existing clots. Other salivary ingredients dilate blood vessels and act as an anesthetic. A medicinal leech can absorb as much as 5 to 10 times its body weight in blood. Complete digestion of this blood takes a long time. And these leeches feed only once or twice a year in this manner.
Who invented the computer?
Computers developed from calculating machines. One of the earliest mechanical devices, 3 for calculating, still widely used today, is the abacus, a frame carrying parallel rods on which beads or counters are strung. The abacus originated in Egypt in 2000 BCE. It reached the Orient about 1,000 years later, and arrived in Europe in about the year 300 CE. In 1617, John Napier invented Napier's bones, marked pieces of ivory for multiples of numbers. In the middle of the same century, Blaise Pascal produced a simple mechanism for adding and subtracting. Multiplication by repeated addition was a feature of a stepped drum or wheel machine of 1694, invented by Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. In 1823, the English visionary Charles Babbage, 1792 to 1871, persuaded the British government to finance an analytical engine. This would have been a machine that could undertake any kind of calculation. It would have been driven by steam. But the most important innovation was that the entire program of operations was stored on a punched tape. Babbage's machine was not completed in his lifetime because the technology available to him was not sufficient to support his design. However, in 1991 a team led by Doran Swade, 1946, at London Science Museum built the analytical engine. Sometimes called the difference engine, based on Babbage's work. Measuring 10 feet, 3 meters, wide by 6.5 feet, 2 meters, tall. It weighed 3 tons and could calculate equations down to 31 digits. The feat proved that Babbage was way ahead of his time, even though the device was impractical. Because one had to turn a crank hundreds of times in order to generate a single calculation. Modern computers use electrons, which travel at nearly the speed of light. Based on the concepts of British mathematician Alan M. Turing, 1912 to 1954, the earliest programmable electronic computer was the 1500 valve Colossus. Formulated by Max Newman, 1897 to 1985, built by T. H. Flowers, 1905 to 1998. And used by the British government in 1943 to crack the German codes generated by the cipher machine Enigma.
What is the difference between a plasmid and a prion?
A plasmid is a small, circular, self-replicating DNA molecule separate from the bacterial chromosome. Plasmids do not normally exist outside the cell and are generally beneficial to the bacterial cell. Plasmids are often used to pick up foreign DNA for use in genetic engineering. A prion is an infectious form of a protein or malformed protein that may increase in number by converting related proteins to more prions. Prions may cause a number of degenerative brain diseases such as mad cow disease or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans.
What are succulents?
A group of more than 30 plant families including the amaryllis, lily, and cactus families forms what is known as the succulents, from the Latin term succulentus, meaning fleshy or juicy. Most members of the group are resistant to droughts as they are dry weather plants. Even when they live in moist, rainy environments, these plants need very little water.
If diamond is the hardest substance, what is the next hardest substance?
Cubic boron nitride, which is the hardest ceramic, is the second hardest substance in the world.
Who are the fathers of spaceflight?
In 1903, Konstantin A. Tsiolkovsky, 1857–1935, a Russian high school teacher, completed the first scientific paper on the use of rockets for space travel. Several years later, Robert H. Goddard, 1882–1945, of the United States and Hermann Oberth, 1894–1989, of Germany awakened wider scientific interest in space travel. These three men worked individually on many of the technical problems of rocketry and space travel. They are known, therefore, as the fathers of spaceflight. In 1919, Goddard wrote the paper, A Method of Reaching Extreme Altitudes, which explained how rockets could be used to explore the upper atmosphere and described a way to send a rocket to the moon. During the 1920s, Tsiolkovsky wrote a series of new studies that included detailed descriptions of multi-stage rockets. In 1923, Oberth wrote The Rocket into Interplanetary Space, which discussed the technical problems of spaceflight and also described what a spaceship would be like.
Who invented the pacemaker?
Paul Zoll, 1911–1999, invented an electric stimulator device to deliver electrical impulses to the heart externally. In 1958, biomedical engineer Wilson Greatbatch, 1919, in cooperation with doctors William M. Chardak, 1915–2006, and Andrew A. Gage, 1922, invented the first internal pacemaker. It was a small, flat, plastic disc powered by a battery. It was implanted into the body and connected by wires sewn directly onto the heart. The wires emitted rhythmic electric impulses to trigger the heart's action. Pacemaker batteries now last from 6 to 10 years.
What is the fastest growing land plant?
Bamboo, Bambusa spp. Native to tropical and subtropical regions of Southeast Asia and islands of the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Is the plant that gains height most quickly. Bamboo can grow almost 3 feet, 1 meter, in 24 hours. This rapid growth is produced partly by cell division and partly by cell enlargement.
What are the odds against being struck by lightning?
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration estimates the odds of being struck by lightning at 1 in 750,000 in a given year. However, the odds drop to 1 in 500,000 based on the number of unreported lightning strikes. The odds of being struck by lightning in one's lifetime are 1 in 6,250. During the past 30 years, there has been an average of 58 reported lightning fatalities per year.
What features of reptiles enabled them to become true land vertebrates?
Legs were arranged to support the body's weight more effectively than in amphibians, allowing reptile bodies to be larger and to run. Reptilian lungs were more developed with a greatly increased surface area for gas exchange than the sac-like lungs of amphibians. The three-chambered heart of reptiles was more efficient than the three-chambered amphibian heart. In addition, the skin was covered with hard, dry scales to minimize water loss. However, the most important evolutionary adaptation was the amniotic egg, in which an embryo could survive and develop on land. The eggs were surrounded by a protective shell that prevented the developing embryo from drying out.
What are the precious metals?
This is a general term for expensive metals that are used for making coins, jewelry, and ornaments. The name is limited to gold, silver, and platinum. Expense or rarity does not make a metal precious, but rather it is a value set by law that states that the object made of these metals has a certain intrinsic value. The term is not synonymous with noble metals, although a metal such as platinum may be both noble and precious.
What was the Tunguska event?
In June 30, 1908, a violent explosion occurred in the atmosphere over the Podkamennaya Tunguska River in a remote part of central Siberia. The blast's consequences were similar to a hydrogen bomb going off, leveling thousands of square miles of forest. The shock of the explosion was heard more than 600 miles, 960 kilometers, away. A number of theories have been proposed to account for this event. Some people thought that a large meteorite or a piece of antimatter had fallen to Earth. But a meteorite, composed of rock and metal, would have created a crater, and none was found at the impact site. There are no high radiation levels in the area that would have resulted from the collision of antimatter and matter. Two other theories include a mini black hole striking Earth or the crash of an extraterrestrial spaceship. However, a mini black hole would have passed through Earth, and there is no record of a corresponding explosion on the other side of the world. As for the spaceship, no wreckage of such a craft was ever found. The most likely cause of the explosion was the entry into the atmosphere of a piece of a comet, which would have produced a large fireball and blast wave. Since a comet is composed primarily of ice, the fragment would have melted during its passage through Earth's atmosphere, leaving no impact crater and no debris. Since the Tunguska event coincided with Earth's passage through the orbit of Comet Inc., the explosion could have been caused by a piece of that comet.
How common are lightning strikes?
Thunderstorms are a very common natural phenomenon. At any given moment, there are 1,800 thunderstorms in progress somewhere on the Earth. Lightning detection systems in the United States monitor an average of 25 million flashes of lightning from cloud to ground every year.
Are any bacteria visible to the naked eye?
Apulopiscium fischelsoni, which lives in the gut of the brown surgeonfish, Acanthurus nigrofuscus, is visible to naked eye. It was first identified in 1985 and mistakenly classified as a protozoan. Later studies analyzed the organism's genetic material and proved it to be a bacterium of unprecedented size. Inches, 0.38 millimeters, in diameter, or about the size of a period in a small print book.
When was the first artificial heart used?
On December 2, 1982, Dr. Barney B. Clark, 1921 to 1983, a 61-year-old retired dentist, became the first human to receive a permanently implanted artificial heart. It was known as the Jarvik 7 after its inventor, Dr. Robert Jarvik. 1946. The 7.5-hour operation was performed by Dr. William DeVries, 1943, a surgeon at the University of Utah. Medical Center. Dr. Clark died on March 23, 1983, 112 days later. In Louisville, Kentucky, William Schroeder, 1923 to 1986, survived 620 days with an artificial heart. November 25, 1984, to August 7, 1986. On January 11, 1990, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) recalled the Jarvik 7, which had been the only artificial heart approved by the FDA for use. 2 models of a total artificial heart, TA, are now available that can replace the ventricles, the 2 lower chambers, of the heart. Eligible patients must have end-stage heart failure, meaning all treatments except a heart transplant have failed. A TA may keep patients alive while they wait for heart transplants, or may keep patients alive who are not eligible for a heart transplant. The 2 brands are the Cardioist and ABIOCOR. The Cardioist is connected to a power source outside of the body via tubes that run from inside the chest to the outside through holes in the abdomen. The ABIOCOR is a battery-powered TA that is completely contained in the chest. The battery is charged through the skin with a special magnetic charger.
Who invented the Pascal computer language?
Niklas Wirth, 1934, a Swiss computer programmer, created the Pascal computer language in 1970. It was used in the academic setting as a teaching tool for computer scientists and programmers.
What is a meltdown, and what does it have to do with the China syndrome?
A meltdown is a type of accident in a nuclear reactor in which the fuel core melts, resulting in the release of dangerous amounts of radiation. In most cases, the large containment structure that houses a reactor would prevent the radioactivity from escaping. However, there is a small possibility that the molten core could become hot enough to burn through the floor of the containment structure and go deep into the earth. Nuclear engineers call this type of situation the China syndrome. The phrase derives from a discussion on the theoretical problems that could result from a meltdown. When a scientist commented that the molten core could bore a hole through the earth, coming out if one happened to be standing in North America in China. Although the scientist was grossly exaggerating, some took him seriously. In fact, the core would only bore a hole about 30 feet, 10 meters, into the earth, but even this distance would have grave repercussions. All reactors are equipped with emergency systems to prevent such an accident from occurring.
When did aluminum recycling begin?
Aluminum recycling dates back to 1888 when the smelting process was invented. Since aluminum is so valuable, companies involved in manufacturing aluminum were motivated to discover ways to make aluminum from aluminum. Recycling aluminum saves 95% of the energy required to make new aluminum, since it eliminates the mining of new ore. It is estimated that 73% of all aluminum ever produced is still in use.
Is a halo around the sun or moon a sign of rain or snow approaching?
The presence of a ring around the sun or, more commonly, the moon in the night sky indicates very high ice crystals composing cirrostratus clouds. The brighter the ring, the greater the odds of precipitation and the sooner it may be expected. Rain or snow will not always fall, but 2 times out of 3. Precipitation will start to fall within 12 to 18 hours. These cirriform clouds are a forerunner of an approaching warm front and an associated low-pressure system.
Who invented the compound microscope?
The principle of the compound microscope, in which 2 or more lenses are arranged to form an enlarged image of an object, occurred independently, at about the same time, to more than one person. Certainly many opticians were active in the construction of telescopes at the end of the 16th century, especially in Holland. So it is likely that the idea of the microscope may have occurred to several of them independently. In all probability the date may be placed within the period 1590 to 1609. And the credit should go to 3 spectacle makers in Holland: Hans Janssen, his son Zacharias, 1580 to 1638, and Hans Lippershey, 1570 to 1619, have all been cited at various times as deserving chief credit. An Englishman, Robert Hooke, was the first to make the best use of a compound microscope, and his book Micrographia, published in 1665, contains some of the most beautiful drawings of microscopic observations ever made.
How sensitive is the hearing of birds?
In most species of birds, the most important sense after sight is hearing. Birds' ears are close to their bodies and are covered by feathers. The feathers, however, do not have barbules, which would obstruct sound. Nocturnal raptors, such as the great horned owl, have a very well-developed sense of hearing in order to be able to capture their prey in total darkness.
Who invented the fuel cell?
The earliest fuel cell, known as a gas battery, was invented by Sir William Grove. 1811 to 1896, in 1839. Grove's fuel cell incorporated separate test tubes of hydrogen and oxygen, which he placed over strips of platinum. It was later modified by Francis Thomas Bacon, 1904 to 1992, with nickel replacing the platinum. A fuel cell is equivalent to a generator. It converts a fuel's chemical energy directly into electricity.
What did NASA mean when it said Voyager 1 and 2 would take a grand tour of the planets?
Once every 176 years the giant outer planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune align themselves in such a pattern that a spacecraft launched from Earth to Jupiter at just the right time might be able to visit the other 3 planets on the same mission. A technique called gravity assist used each planet's gravity as a power boost to point Voyager toward the next planet. The first opportune year for the Grand Tour was 1977.
Who developed fiberglass?
Coarse glass fibers were used for decoration by the ancient Egyptians. Other developments were made in Roman times. Parisian craftsman Ignace Dioubaspanel was granted a patent for the spinning and weaving of drawn glass strands in 1836. In 1893, the Libby Glass Company exhibited lampshades at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago that were made of coarse glass thread woven together with silk. However, this was not a true woven glass. Between 1931 and 1939, the Owens, Illinois Glass Company and the Corning Glass Works developed practical methods of making fiberglass commercially. Once the technical problem of drawing out the glass threads to a fraction of their original thinness was solved, basically an endless strand of continuous glass filament as thin as 1/5000 of an inch, 0.005 millimeters. The industry began to produce glass fiber for thermal insulation and air filters, among other uses. When glass fibers were combined with plastics during World War II, a new material was formed. Glass fibers did for plastics what steel did for concrete, gave strength and flexibility. Glass fiber reinforced plastics, GFRP, became very important in modern engineering. Fiberglass combined with epoxy resins and thermosetting polyesters are now used extensively in boat and ship construction, sporting goods, automobile bodies, and circuit boards in electronics.